Hello, World Civ 107. Welcome to week 5. And as you see in the announcement that I mentioned that we have an exam, and we're going to be having an exam on all of my announcements. So there will not be an exam on all my announcements, but I will do a quiz or something if I keep seeing that my announcements are getting lower and lower numbers being watched, or I have students asking me questions about things that I covered in announcements. And I also really want to make sure that you are looking at my announcements because I try to make sure that they complement things that are going on, or that I can clarify something that I see that maybe is more relevant to the times we're living in now from when the last time I made the announcement. The last one I posted on dealing with looking at Ivan the Terrible and the Russian philosopher that was very controversial, known as the brain of Putin, and what he had to say in comparing Ivan the Terrible to Putin. Now, so I want to kind of like make sure I'm drawing it all in. By the way, I need to also say something. Ivan the Terrible, I should have been more careful about using this term. That is what he's known as. But Grozny, I mentioned this in the I think one of my lectures, but I want to clarify. I believe in Russian, Ivan Grozny, if I'm saying it right, it means more like the formidable. So the word terrible, it gives us the connotation that I think it's fair to say that many people felt about this character. But I think a more precise translation would be formidable than terrible, and it would make more sense why a leader being called the formidable one, makes much more sense than like saying, well, I'm terrible. Okay, you get what I'm saying? So it's not a totally wrong translation, but I want you to get an understanding of the nuance of the word. Okay, and it's those kind of things that I want to help kind of clarify in my announcements. And these are also because of things that I learned, more or less later on as well, as I said. So I just want to make that clear for everyone. Also, I'm hoping that you start to see the various connections that we're having with all the subject matter that we're talking about. So when we covered, Russia being cut off from Western Europe by the Mongols, we also, prior to that, talked about slavery in Africa. So we've already talked, and we've talked about slavery in the Ottoman Empire. So you're learning about different ways these global systems work and interact with each other. Now, this week, I don't do any lectures, but I give a set of videos with some reading dealing with several revolutions that are taking place and being discussed. And I want you to see how they all relate to each other, and especially when we get to Haiti. So think about what we were learning about the African slave system, the transatlantic slave system that was happening. Think about the idea of absolute rulers and kings, and then also think about the idea of maybe a nation being influenced by one other one and then doing its own thing and then breaking away from it. So the United States from the UK, or Haiti from France, and so on. And the French Revolution, by the way, will pop up everywhere later on in parts of the world you don't expect. I took a whole class on the French Revolution when I was at UC Santa Cruz that I didn't even need to, because everywhere I would study these different in my other history classes that would pop up. And I'm talking about like places in Middle Eastern and North African history where you had leaders, future leaders of post-colonial Africa and the Middle East and Southeast Asia and Asia that read the French Revolution while they were being even occupied by the French, and they were like, in a sense, the French Revolution has been the double-edged sword of the legacy of what the French have exported to the world. And it's kind of like revolutionary leaders everywhere who want to become independent look at that and they're like, let's see, killing leaders that oppress us that we don't like. The French are occupying us. You feel me? So that's something that you're going to see pop up later on. And I think I might have talked about that a little bit, and that'll be covered more later. And the fact that those of us in the United States are not so aware of Haiti and the Haitian Revolution is a shame that we are going to annihilate right here, and we're going to get rid of. And you guys are all going to be aware of this. My own daughter is my ex-wife is part Haitian and part Filipino, and so I've been able to kind of get a little bit more like thoughts about this from my own personal life about the legacy of colonialism and imperialism and the way that these things have been thought about and how these results have produced certain things. I guess I'm being vague right now because I'm trying not to go too much into my past personal relationship. But needless to say, Haiti's on my mind, Philippines is on my mind, and we're covering that here at least a little bit. And also the idea of absolute monarchs. So I just kind of wanted to also briefly state this. You know, if you've read my biography, you saw that I traveled quite a bit last year. And I was staying in Thailand. That was like kind of my base because I have family there. And in Thailand, there's laws that you cannot say anything disrespectful about the king or you go to prison. Actually, the money in Thailand, if you drop it and if you don't pay attention, you step on it, which has a picture of the face of the king, you can get in serious trouble. So that's where, I mean, even though the Thai government doesn't have an absolute monarch the way that it did before, the power of the king was diminished by the military early on in the 20th century, but still has quite a bit of power and is viewed as an avatar of divinity. They're called Ramas. That's one of their names. And they kind of blend Hinduism and Buddhism together. And so in Thailand, it's the Hindu temple religious view. It's hard to like briefly say. The king, the divinity of the king and the court rituals are based on a Hindu type of ritual that comes into Thailand. But Thailand is mainly Buddhist. Okay, it's confusing for sure, but I'm just letting you know. And so, you know, I saw how something like that operated, where you're living with a king that you are supposed to respect. And those of us in the United States, this is the antithesis to what we're used to, because we actually had a king, and we did have a king, King George, and we felt that he was no longer our king. And we assaulted our law enforcement and pushed it out and disrespected our king. And we said we don't want any of it. And then we became the United States, and the people who didn't do that stayed and became Canada. Those were the loyalists, because they were loyal. And that's why the Queen is still the Queen of Canada. You feel me? So, if you have any questions in all of this, let me know. But I just thought I wanted to kind of add some different perspectives to you on all of that. I feel like there was something else that I wanted to mention too, but we'll just have to move on from there. If you have any questions about anything, please let me know. Let's make sure that we're keeping on our papers names, dates. We're excited. The exam, I expect the same as I did with my Sunday papers, and I'm sure now most of you understand what needs to be done there. And so I hope you have a great week, and we'll be in touch.